I want to thank everybody for taking another Monday night with us. I really appreciate it. I do apologize that we had to reschedule or cancel our site visits on Saturday. It really would have been miserable to be, going on to sites and really wanting to see everything we wanted to see if we were going to be complete downpour on us. So one of the agenda items for tonight is to look at what the is to look at rescheduling that. So we were initially going to take this time today to debrief from those visits. Obviously, we won't be doing that today. You saw from the revised agenda that we're going to do some housekeeping matters. Director Robinson has collected, and his team and Mr. Bennett's team has started to collect data at Sisson Street. So just get a preliminary sense from the last 3 weeks as to like who the users are. Obviously, we see more users in the summer, but it gives us a little bit of an idea. So we'll talk about that. The Department of Public Works Solid Waste had their capital budget hearing the other day, and I wanted the department to share their slides about the sites, the solid waste collection sites, just so that everybody's on the same page with what they are presenting to the capital budget and be able to ask questions and make comments. We are in the process of thinking about what our end report would look like that has our recommendations. So I just wanted to do some brainstorming around that. We'll talk about rescheduling the site visits in our next meetings. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's our agenda for today. We don't have any set speakers, but we do have some things to discuss. Obviously, we'll have an open discussion towards the end so that if there are members who have specific items that they want to bring up that we need to bring up again, we can certainly do that as well. I would like our next meeting on the 26th to be in person so that we can actually have conversations about some recommendations and I think it will just be helpful to have some discussion in person. And we'll let you know what the location is. It may end up being here at City Hall because we have the technology for the public meeting part, but we'll let everybody know. And then we'll talk about February 9th in a minute. So any questions about the agenda? Okay. As per the usual, if you're not a member of the task force, you would not be able to talk during our meetings, but you're welcome to put in comments in the chat. That seems to have been helpful for our discussions. So, Deputy Director, I saw that you were here. Do you want to present the preliminary findings I shouldn't say findings. They're not really findings. They're data right now.
Yes.
And you could certainly want to make sure that you get a chance to present those. So I think you should have sharing privileges. I'm not controlling the meeting, so if you don't, let us know, and Dana, who's controlling the meeting, can help you.
Okay. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Are you able to hear me, ma'am?
You're very light, but that could be me. So just give me a second.
No, it may be my laptop. I do apologize. This laptop goes in and out at times. So
there. Okay. Yeah.
Is that a little bit better?
Goddamn piece of shit.
Yes, that's good. Mr. Williams, you are not muted. I got to mute you because you're also cursing, and you can't do that in a public meeting. So we'll make sure to mute you. Okay, go ahead, Deputy Director.
All right. If everyone can see my screen, because I am now going to go into presentation mode. And if you are able to see my screen, ma'am, can you just give me a verbal confirmation?
You're good.
All right. Awesome. All right, team. So good to see everybody. Happy New Year. This is our first real meeting in the new year. Haven't had a chance to see many of you since 2025. But a lot has changed since 2025. We had talked about at our previous meeting, we were looking at the residential usage for the last 2 years at the Sisson Street yard, and we were comparing that to some of our other residential recycling centers. We talked about the fact that we all recognize that Sisson Street is one of the more heavily used sites. Here we were looking at the tonnage that was collected between the last 2 years of October 2023 to October 2025. We also looked at the amount of tonnage, municipal waste, that was collected during that time frame. And we saw again that Sisson Street was one of the more utilized centers. But we wanted to actually quantify, what does that mean when we say it's one of the more utilized centers? We know that there's a lot more tonnage being delivered there, but we also want to know, is it because of the type of material that's coming or the volume of visitors that are there? So over the last 2 weeks, we've tasked the folks at our residential recycling centers to actually, in addition to the unique identifier, we talked about that before, which was their license tags, which we were not capturing, but we were just using it as a unique identifier. We have begun capturing zip codes of all visitors to the various sites. So with that, this is the data as of December the 17th through January the 9th. We're looking at the visitors and where they are hailing from at the Sisson Street yard. Now, you can see they're coming from all over. The dots represent a volume that is coming from that particular zip code. And in totality, we've had 2,608 visitors over the last 2 weeks from these various zip codes. We went ahead and did it also in a density map, so more of a heat map, so you can see visualize where folks are actually hailing from. Majority of the folks are coming from right around the 3 zip codes right abutting to our Sisson Street yard, which you can see we're getting visitors from all over. Now, when we compare that, looking at our Bowley's Lane, which is also another residential recycling center, which is focusing primarily on residential trash and debris coming in. While it is a Eastern sanitation yard, the majority of the folks visiting there that are not part of our collection team are folks who are just disposing of their household debris. And
Deputy
you can see
Director, the maps are super small here. Is there a way to zoom them in?
Let's see. Really, you're just looking at the color code. That's really all you need to see. It's nothing
You had
more.
it there for a second. Yep.
Understood. I was saying, but yeah, it's going to keep kind of doing
Perfect.
that. So what I was saying is that what's important is actually looking at the color code. When you look at the darker color, the deeper color, that's where the majority of those folks are coming from that are visiting that site. But we can already start with the grand total. Whereas we were at 2,600 for Sisson Street, Bowley's Lane is our next highly visited site at 1,491. We compare that to our Northwest Transfer Station. Now, the Northwest Transfer Station is primarily used by our collection teams on the west side of Baltimore. This is a true transfer station where debris is dropped off, put into compactors, and then transported to various disposal locations, which either would be Bresco or the Quarantine Road landfill. That is also where our small hauler program is. And so the majority of the folks there are either our internal crews or small haulers that are coming there. However, we do have a good portion of residential folks that are coming there, but not to the level that we see at either Sisson or Bowley's Lane. So we only have about 190 over the last 2 weeks who have visited this particular location. And then we compare that to our Quarantine Road landfill, which again is primarily used by our commercial, our mixed refuse curbside collections, as well as some of our haulers. We do have a few folks, but typically the folks who are visiting Quarantine Road live in the area. And this is the most convenient residential drop-off center for them. For that total, we're looking at 378. So we actually have more folks who will visit the Quarantine Road landfill than we do at the Northwest Transfer Station.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the data as presented. Just wanted to make sure that we made due on our promise to share with you that information. We are continuing to collect, and we'll be more than happy to show updated results as we go on.
Director, what was the number from Sisson again?
20. Let me go back to that.
Fucking son of a bitch.
26.
Okay, there are some people. I'm sorry, Director. Hold on. There are some people that are not muted, and we can't seem to mute you. If you can please mute yourselves, that would be amazing. So that's Mr. Williams, Mr. Gunst, Ms. Danforth. For some reason, we can't. Can you mute yourself, please?
Sorry, I've been trying to find audio. Yep, right. We'll do it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. You should be able to find the mute button at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Director. My apologies. So it's the grand total for the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks is 2,600 from Sisson.
Yes.
For Sisson. Okay.
For Sisson. Yes. This were all the visitors to Sisson. And again, the color shading denotes the density of visitors from that particular zip code.
I think that's interesting that there's some Southeast and Southwest folks that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I think the numbers would be exponentially higher with, hazardous waste and all of that. But I think this gives us a good idea. Any other members with questions? And we'll make sure to send you all this report as well. Because I think it's interesting to at least get a sense of what we already have. I think the dot map is interesting, and then also the heat map. So as we suspected, right, there's a lot of people using Sisson, which is I think extremely important for us to think about. So Director, you're going to be asking your folks to continue with this collection of data for the next few months.
Yes, we will continue this because we actually now want to start comparing seasonal as well, right? So as you mentioned, different events that we may have as household hazardous waste and some of the other things, the initiatives that we'll be kicking off this year. So we do want to do a comparative analysis on the traffic that we're receiving due to those events.
Okay. And then also, I think it was interesting to note, I didn't realize residents could also use Northwest and quarantine. So that obviously quarantine is easier for super South Baltimore folks, and Northwest is, but that they're not really designed for residents, right? Like there's no like drop off thing that we have at Sisson.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. So when we talk about Northwest, you actually are still in the same exact line as our folks who are for the small haulers program, as well as, we try to bypass with our collection crews so we can get them in and out to make sure that they're hitting all of their routes in a timely fashion. But that line does get a little extensive. It goes down to Wabash from time to time.
I've seen it.
Yes.
It's a lot. And but you were able to separate residential folks
Yes.
from the small haulers. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Councilman Torrance is also here. Thank you, Councilman. So any questions for the Deputy Director? Is there any change in the data collection that you all would like to see? I think this is interesting just from a programmatic perspective to be able to capture this data as well. I think it's really important. Any questions?
I see that Colleen does have a question in the chat. If it's okay, I can go ahead and address that question. All right, so it states, what criteria did the city use to decide which locations to make major improvements to? So this was decided part of our capital improvement plan over the years. As we were looking at our strategic plan a few years back, we said, okay, what areas would we like to make those improvements to? And the East Side Center was originally supposed to be a transfer station. However, due to budgetary constraints, we were not able to fully design it out to be a transfer station, but we are still under the current design going to be focusing on enhancing the residential drop-off center, as well as looking to offer a small hauler way station at that location so that we can be more convenient for all of our visitors and residents. As well as we've made improvements, which we would have been able to show you a little bit of those improvements that we're making to the administrative building for our staff. This is improvements internally where the admin offices have been refreshed, where the locker rooms have been improved. So that's the idea behind the decision to where we were going to do these improvements. It wasn't just for the residential recycling aspect, it was for the overall operational efficiencies that we were looking at improving.
Right. Well, we're going to get into the capital budget discussion in just a moment. Are there any other questions from members about the data? And I know this is the first time looking at it, so if you have questions afterwards, feel free to email us. I'm not surprised by the data at all, and it is something that I think we need to continue to collect because I think that'll help us from a programmatic standpoint as well. Okay, so Deputy Director, I don't know if you're on or if it's Director Garbark to really share with us the capital budget, because that the question you just answered is in context with the work that and the capital budget plan that has been put together by DPW for solid waste, particularly the sites, all of the sites around the city. Deputy Director, is that you or is that going to be Director Garbark?
I see that Director Garbark is on. Sir, were you, given that you were presenting this to the Planning Commission, were you also planning on doing so this evening?
I do not have the PowerPoint presentation, but I'm happy to talk through any of the issues or any of the items that
it's all online. Let me just take a second to find it under the Planning Commission because we should be able to look at these.
And
while you're looking for that, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Alan, question for you, Deputy Director. Do we know, outside of the ramps at Sisson Street and the data that comes there, is there certain services at Sisson Street that are offered that are not offered at the other location? Like different types of things that people would go and travel there to? Like, for instance, like if people in the Southeast can't drop off certain parts of trash, but they come or recycle certain parts, but they come to Sisson to do so. Is there any differences? I know we're making improvements to some of the other ones like you were mentioning, but I was just curious.
So one of the key differences is the household hazardous waste that is primarily at the Sisson Street yard. I do have our chief of the residential sites and mechanical street sweeping on here with us. Mr. Bennett, are you able to speak a little bit more? Are there any other services that I'm not aware of that are solely at the Sisson Street yard?
No, sir. Other than the household hazardous waste, we do have at this time the tree mulching program, and that's only offered at Sisson Street, where you can bring your Christmas tree in, and we'll put it through the machine, mulch it, and you're able to take some mulch home and put it around your house. Other than that, that's all the differences.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question on that point?
Go ahead.
The differences between the sites, because one of the things that we've been hearing is that Sisson Street, just by the way of its design, is easier for people to use because you can back up and you can dump your stuff over a cliff as opposed to putting them into the metal container. So the improvements that are being made at the other sites, will they have that kind of setup, or will it still be the big containers?
No, we're looking to install ramps to support that as well. We want to take and improve upon what we found worked at Sisson Street,
Right.
and apply those to our Bowleys and Reedburg locations that we're currently undergoing renovations at.
So Reedbird will be open, you think, in about 18 months? Is that the plan?
That is the plan.
Okay, so you would basically have the ability to do the ramp and drop off there as well.
That is the intent.
Okay, great. Thanks.
This was last year's. Just give me 1 second. I was looking at last
Deputy Director, while we're waiting here, so if I recall
Go ahead.
correctly, it's something like 24 raised bays at each one of those sites, so 48 eventually total, compared to the maybe 10 that we have access to at Sisson. So it'll be like a substantial increase. But my question was also, would household hazardous waste drop off or the tree mulching potentially be available at those new sites when, you know, these are going to be much larger, or is that stuff that could be accommodated at those new sites?
That is the intent. So we're going to look at what programs would work at those new sites. Definitely looking at household hazardous waste. We're looking at composting, yard waste, food composting, things of that nature, and being able to build out facilities that support that. Bowleys and Reedbird gives us the best opportunity to do those enhancements because of the space that we currently have at those locations.
Great, thank you.
Hey, this is Councilman Torrance. I'm looking at the data again. Can we have a breakdown by zip code?
It is by zip code.
I'm looking at it. If I'm looking at the wrong thing, it does. I don't see zip code.
So I'll share that updated information with you, sir. It is broken down. What I shared today was broken down by zip. It gave a density as far as where folks are coming from. We have it broken down by the day, as well as aggregated over the course of the 12-day span.
But we don't, I mean, you don't, the numbers are embedded in the map, correct?
Yes. But I'll share that with you.
I can't seem to find the agency presentations. I know they're supposed to be on the website.
Matt,
Sorry
maybe,
about that. Oh.
this is Khalil. Matt, maybe you could talk a little bit about, just in general terms, about the requests, and because I mean, I could fill in some of the gaps if needed. Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and start talking about the projects and what you covered and what you requested for this upcoming CIP.
Certainly. All right. So, unlike the Bureau of Water and Wastewater, the Bureau of Solid Waste has a much smaller capital program. It uses general obligation bonds, which are backed by the general fund of the city. There are no revenue bonds that can be used similar to the way the water and wastewater utilities can be used. So it's much smaller than the water and wastewater. However, there are a few major things that we did request. So for first thing I want to mention is we requested another $500,000 for solid waste facility health and safety improvements. We've been using this quite a bit for our existing improvements. I think we've talked extensively about all of the different trailers and other facilities that we've done, as well as bathroom and locker room improvements. We want to continue on that. We have some additional trailers we want to get at other sites such as Crescent Street, as well as additional work that we're going to be doing throughout our entire set of facilities for solid waste. So that's $500,000 request. Then there was $1 million request for solid waste regulatory compliance services. This is primarily related to the Quarantine Road landfill. So there are environmental compliance issues specifically related to how we treat the leachate, or the water that goes through the landfill and is then collected and treated once it comes out at the bottom of the landfill, as well as other cover requirements for covering any landfill, and some other just sort of, we got to spray down dirt and other issues once it is covered so it can't blow around. So there's a number of compliance and regulatory issues that really are capital in nature. So we did request $1 million for that. We requested an additional $5.6 million for the Boldy's Lane East Side Center. As the deputy director noted, this is a project that has grown extensively. And what we are looking to do is we're looking to phase it so that we're going to be doing the drop-off center, the administrative building, and the compost facility sooner, and later on actually get to our transfer operations. So really focus on some of the needed improvements to the facilities right now, and then focus on some of the ones that are going to be more difficult to build funding for. One thing I think I had mentioned, this is a closed landfill, so there is refuse underneath the ground. If we were to do any transfer operations that require compaction of materials, that puts a huge strain on the ground, which the major concern is that it could puncture the cap. There's a film, a cap that encapsulates the trash and refuse under that. So that's the major concern there. And that's what really ballooned the costs up. But we're focusing on the admin buildings, the drop-off center, and the compost facility with the East Side Transfer Center. And that was $5.6 million. We are requesting $10 million for the Western Sanitation Yard renovation. So this, we have been building up funding for this over the last few years. I think we had mentioned we had about $10 million for the Reed Bird facility. The latest cost estimates place it at 17 million. However, knowing excuse me, that the costs of construction as well as inflation will likely go up, we are expecting this to be upwards of 20 million. So that is why we are requesting 10 million for FY28 for the Reed Bird facility. For the aerated static pile compost facility, we are not requesting anything this year because that has been funded by previous year's CIP requests, as well as a $4 million grant that we got from the federal government. And the last thing that we requested, and I want to just talk about this briefly, is Quarantine Road landfill expansion. So that's about $3 million. The reason we're requesting this, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that we're conducting a study as we speak about the best use of this landfill. However, for the last nearly 2 decades, the city has been pursuing an expansion of the landfill and has been putting money aside each and every year. This is around $3 million to $4 million each year. At this point, we do not have information or data that would show what a better use would be other than expanding the landfill, which is why we kept this request on the CIP list, because it is still an active project that we are pursuing. I intend to review this with the team and as well as with the Planning Commission for the coming year, as well as into next year, to see if that money is better used somewhere else. But at this point, because the project has had a lot of investment in it, and it has still been a project that the city has prioritized, we did not feel comfortable pulling it off yet. So those are the solid waste requests, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can everybody see this chart that I just pulled up? This is these are the major ones. Is that correct, Director?
Yes. And I may have gotten one of them wrong. So I'll go. Quarantine Road landfill expansion is 3 million. Waste diversion facility is 1 million. Yes. So that is money we are requesting if and when we come back with new ideas about what we could do instead of the landfill. This would give us some information where we could actually begin doing some analysis and some preliminary work to see what those feasibility items would be. I mentioned the $1 million for facility health and safety, the $1 million for solid waste regulatory compliance. I think I said $500,000. It is $1 million. And then I was looking at the wrong year for the aerated static pile. For fiscal 27, we are looking at $3 million. And I think I misstated the East Side Transfer Station. The 5.6 is for next year. This year, we are looking at using the existing funds as we develop that phase plan. So apologies for any confusion there.
Okay, I have some questions here. If folks can see my screen, I can't see you, so feel free to unmute members. But I have you can see in the chart that there's the first column is FY27, which is what we would be voting on this year. And then the plan, the capital budget has a plan for fiscal year 28, 29, all the way up to 32. So that tells you a little bit about what those plans are. And then I don't see Reed Bird here unless I'm not reading it properly. Is all the money already obligated for Reed Bird, so it's not in this year's budget? Is that right?
I would need to go back and check. I do not see it here. But I'm pretty certain that we did request it in it. So let me try to go through.
This is as of 12/18. So if that changed in a month, that would be good to get the additional numbers. And then
looking for Reed Bird, what I have right here, it's Western Sanitation Yard. So for fiscal 27, that's correct. No, we are not requesting any. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong year. Apologies.
So that means that we have the full funding for Reed Bird because we're about to.
No, we have funding currently, about $10 million. We are estimating it to be another $7 million. However, given the potential for cost inflation and construction increases, we would like to have $20 million for the total project. So the $10 million we're requesting would actually be next fiscal year. So that we would actually be continuing to finalize the design this year.
I see it.
So that's the 10 million. I was looking at the wrong year.
Yep. And East Side Transfer Station is Bowley's. So you said that you're going to use a phased approach there.
Yes. And that's where, if you look out all the way to 28, 29, 30, 31, there is a $42 million investment. That is likely going to change significantly as we figure out the phased approach. But that is something that we wanted to make sure was included in our request for a total rebuild and revamp of the East Side facility, up to and including transfer operations.
And the waste diversion facility is the construction and deconstruction, or whatever it's called, facility that we talked about after the capital budget hearing.
That is one of the concepts, yes. So there's a few concepts we're looking at. One would be a sorting facility. Another would be perhaps a construction and demolition facility where we could reclaim some of that. Another would be transfer operations that could include containerizing and rail shipping some of these facilities. But it would be all of those concepts. And the idea would be that $1 million we are requesting could allow us to do a deep feasibility study on some of the initial ideas we get from the long haul study that we're currently funding.
Yep. Okay, look at this. There's no money here for Sisson.
That's correct.
But you have put in the new modular to be able to get better facilities for and then the expansion doesn't have any other, the landfill expansion doesn't have any other money in it after this year. And we're hoping and praying that we don't have to expand the landfill. Is that what we're saying here?
That is, I guess, yes, that is a good way to put it. I am thinking there is a better way to invest the city's limited resources. That my gut is telling me that, my common sense is telling me that. However, I need to see it in data and information. So that's where we are with that. Yeah.
The research shows that 40% of the waste going into the landfill is construction waste anyway.
That's correct.
So if we divert that, or at least a good percentage of that, there's in addition to the bottles and cans and things like that, then we should be in better shape.
In theory, yes. If we maximize our waste diversion, the city's Less Waste, Better Baltimore plan estimates that 83%, excuse me, of our 84%, excuse me, of our waste can be diverted or minimized. If we can maximize all of that, then we will not need an expanded landfill. But it's going to be a lot of investment and a lot of work to get to that point.
But it sounds like you wouldn't have put this in the capital budget if you already didn't have buy-in from the administration to move in this direction.
We briefed the administration, deputy mayor, city administrator. They are aware of our approach and are supportive of what we're doing.
Members, any questions on this chart or the capital budget? And I'll make sure to make this available for you as well. The slides had additional details about each thing, but what I wanted to show you was the numbers, really.
No, this is great.
Yeah, I have just one quick question. Kristen, you want to go first?
Here, I'll just quickly ask, is from a hypothetical perspective, like whatever ends up happening to Sisson, there's going to have to be money spent regardless, like to whatever we end up doing. How does that get added to this? Does that get added in a different area? Like, do numbers get shifted around? How do you guys account for spending, whether it be moving, closing, shifting, rehabbing, like whatever it is? What do you guys do to kind of consolidate the numbers?
So some of that sits in the solid waste health and safety improvements, as well as the where's the other thing? The solid waste facility health and safety improvements. That includes stuff like the trailers, stuff like the improvements to the facilities. If we were to actually be looking at moving, relocating, anything like that, a lot of those costs are going to be operating, not necessarily capital. This is just capital expenses, so not the operating budget for the city.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, my other question was, you made a comment that 84% of waste was divertible. Can you just briefly explain that? Okay, thanks.
So when you look at all the different types of materials, we've done a number of waste sorts. So we work with consultants where we actually go through piles of our waste and we take out everything from mattresses to construction and demolition to food scrap to cardboard to paper and everything. And everything that we've tallied up for our entire waste stream, we have been able to identify markets or recyclable or recoverable methods for 84% of our waste. There are going to be certain types of waste where there really isn't anything right now. Prime example of that would be diapers. That is the material it's made. Trash. Exactly. Even mattresses, tires, all of those can be recyclable. There are methods, there are technologies, and looking at our waste stream, nothing is out of the ordinary, and 84% of everything that we pick up has a way to be recoverable, recyclable, or divertible.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, and we are working on the Bowley's Lane expenses, as you saw, were for the short term sort of revitalizing the air, but we're also putting in a composting facility. So right now we have to ship our composting out to, I don't even know where, but for processing, and or have other partnerships. Like when we had composting at the Waverly Market, one of the farmers took the composting, and so having a much better way of addressing that is going to be important. I have been working with DPW on a deconstruction bill to divert our construction waste, especially since we're going to be rehabbing a lot of houses. This is the right time to do that. And we're thinking about how we address the bottles and cans. Even though we have a robust recycling program, the percentages are rather low. So we do need to figure that out. But I think what you're seeing in the capital budget is that we're thinking about that, which is good. What we don't see is how Sisson fits in. And so that there's already been some thinking about that. But again, that's kind of the point of the task force, is to look at this, with what we have and what the needs are, and the data from usage is going to be important. Councilman Jones, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had your hand up. Go ahead.
No, no problem at all. When looking at like the various facilities, it looks like a lot of, when it comes to like capital improvement investment money set aside, it looks like there's been a lot of money either previously set aside and invested in, or in the future, to a lot of the facilities, except Sisson Street, kinda. It looks like. While Sisson Street by data looks like the most busy or frequent one out of all of them. Can you like just give me the thought process behind the most busiest
Sure.
one, not necessarily having set aside? Is there a reason behind it?
Yeah, so there's a few reasons. Sisson Street really only performs one function, and that's a residential recycling center. When you look at our other facilities, they are performing multiple functions. And one of the things, because solid waste is part of the general fund and it has limited funding, we've been looking to try and co-locate our facilities on larger, making sure that we have larger parcels that can handle multiple different things. That's one of the reasons why we're putting our compost facility at Bowley's, because we also have our Eastern Yard there, as well as a drop-off center. That's why over with Reedbird, the same thing. We're looking to build a more expansive drop-off center, because we have our Western Sanitation Yard there. That's been the main reason. And quite honestly, Sisson Street, there's just not a lot to do. What we would have to do is there's not a lot of room. We'd essentially have to either close it and relocate it and rebuild it, or really try to divide it up, which it's already very small. And that would make it difficult to continue operations as we rebuild certain areas over the other. So what we've really been looking to do is just maintain what we have there. That's why we look at the trailers. That's why we've included some of the safety upgrades there for some of the electrical work and other things, but really not the major capital improvement. The determination was that there are other facilities that we could co-locate things and really get economies of scale to really grow certain sectors and really improve a number of different divisions, whereas Sisson Street is just really one type of function there.
Thanks, Director. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
the explanation.
I know I see you, Samantha. I had a quick question. What's the you had mentioned that one thing that I hadn't discussed before was around where to relocate hazardous waste, and that's going to be at Bowley's. Is that what you're thinking about?
To be determined. I think we are looking to build these facilities ideally that we'll be able to offer, and Deputy Director Robinson can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe ideally we want to be able to offer the same services everywhere,
Gotcha.
or at least expand them more than to just one facility. Obviously, compost is going to be at one facility, but we want to make sure these recycling centers are more accessible and can include more than just one facility that people have to go to.
Gotcha. Samantha, go ahead.
Hi, great. Councilman Jones asked most of my question, but yeah, I think Councilman Jones's question actually covered it. But my other question is, you mentioned how construction material is at some of the other DPW sites, and is that like smaller construction projects, or are these like large scale construction projects? Like, are we talking row home renovations or large scale construction?
So for all of our facilities, it would be small residential. When you're doing commercial level renovations, there actually has to be a disposal permit and a process and method that the contractor follows. They actually have to pay for disposal. That can include going to the landfill. They are not allowed to go to our facilities. Oftentimes they will go to the landfill, or they might go to other landfills or have other private landfillers or haulers or junk scrap dealers that they use. So when we're talking about construction and demolition, we're looking at it on a very small scale, either home improvement projects or small level renovations.
Sure, and that includes like Reed Bird as well?
That would include all of our facilities,
Okay,
yes.
got it. And then also, this also came up in a previous meeting that I don't think you were on, but since we talk about Sisson, especially for residential recycling, I know it means residents can recycle there, but does that also mean it's intended to be recycling from a residence as opposed to a business?
Yeah, so the way we look and the way we collect our refuse and our recycling is more the design of the property. Many properties are in smaller row homes. Many of those places get recycling cans and trash cans, and if you get a trash can or a recycling can, you are entitled to city services. So what we look at, and I think the deputy mentioned this, if you bring materials to one of our recycling centers, we look to see if you're a resident. If the materials are covered and able to be put in our recycling facility, then we will allow people to dispose of them. If they come more than the limited number of times that they're permitted, we won't let them come. And if they have a volume higher than the limit, then we won't let them drop off. Also, if there's material that is of a construction or industrial nature or commercial nature, we won't let that come. So it's really based on what the individual is hauling and whether the individual is a city resident.
There's a limit to how much, so can you talk about that?
Yeah, Alan would know more than I would, but I believe it is 3 times per week or twice per day. Is that it, Alan?
Mr. Bennett might
Or
know.
Mr. Bennett would know that, yeah, if he's on.
Yes, that's twice a day, 4 to 5 times a week. And once we enter your information into the system, if you go over that, a red flag will come up to let us know that you are over your limit and you cannot enter until next week. So that's the way the system is set up now, and that's why we put the information.
I think another.
I went on mute. That's why we put the information into it.
Mr. Bennett, you accidentally got on mute again. Sorry about that.
For some reason to keep jumping on mute. Say someone goes to Sisson Street and they get turned around because of at their limit or something. And then people, they try to go to Bowley's. They'll turn around and leave Sisson and go to Bowley's. And once we put that information in at Bowley's, that same red flag will kick up and let us know at Bowley's that, hey, you can't come there. So, yeah, once you hit that limit, it comes up.
And do we mostly see that with contracting, or do we see that with like people cleaning out properties? How often do we see that happening?
We mostly see it with contractors and small haulers that try to slide into Sisson Street or Bowley's when they know that they're supposed to go to the transfer station.
Got it. Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I do remember a situation with a constituent of mine that was handled the right way. My constituent was not very kind, and I apologize for that, but it was unfortunate. But I think that's what happened, is that he just didn't want to go to quarantine. So you definitely have those limits there. So I do think that would be another data point that we could put on the report is, or the data that the director gave us, which is like how many times, like the average number of times that you're seeing certain folks. If you've got frequent users, I think I use Sisson maybe once a month, but there may be others that do more. Obviously, with hazardous waste, it's more. I think that would be an interesting piece as well of data. And now that you're collecting the data for usage, I think that's something that can be tracked a little bit better. So I know we're just starting to get this data, so we're going to have all these, other pieces, but I do think that that would be interesting to note and important. Kevin, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Director, this is directed at you. Based on the numbers and based on the current configuration of all of the transfer stations around the city, for lack of a better term, would the transfer stations be able to handle the current load that comes into Sisson Street if Sisson Street was closed down?
So I'm going to preface that question by saying if the other improvements we're planning all come to fruition with the full design, the intent is to have more than enough capacity. As we stand now, we do not have Rebird online. Bowley's is still just dumpsters that are out there. It would be extremely difficult right now. But our eventual capital improvements, the intent, the plan is to have an expanded service that can be able to handle the volume.
Just as a small follow-up, I know that a lot of people have complained about the long lines at Northwest, and I'm sure there are long lines some days at other places. So that would obviously not get better if Sisson was closed. And with these improvements that you have planned, do you think that that would stop the long lines at Northwest and other places?
Yes. So again, the Bowley's Lane facility, we are phasing that. One portion of the phase is to create a small haulers location for the east side. And that would have, I believe the plan is to have a third more bays, and out year phasing would have even larger small hauler drop off areas to take that pressure off of Northwest.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, Northwest is overloaded at the moment, and not necessarily in terms of waste, but in terms of usage from the conflicting,
Yes.
the trash trucks and the small haulers. We'd like to get our crews to be able to go home at night and see their families before everybody goes to bed. And so having those lines down is going to be really important.
Yes.
That's something that we've talked about for a few years now. So looking forward for that coming into fruition. Members, any other questions for the director, whether it's related to the data or the capital budget, the current planned capital budget? I will tell you the sort of process on the capital budget from here. The Planning Commission has one more day of hearings with other agencies. And then they will make a recommendation as to what the 27 budget is going to look like and the out years. But the budget that we, the council, pass is the FY27. That particular year. We, the council, do not currently have separate hearings on the capital budget, which I am really trying to change because I do think that we need to have more discussion in the city council. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, the Planning Commission makes its recommendations in March, and that gets folded into the budget that then gets passed in June. The City Council has hearings on the operating budget in end of May, beginning of June. So there are obviously opportunities to say something to the Planning Commission. And so, that's one of the things that we're, that's the plan in terms of like, can the council make changes to the capital budget? Our budgetary authority by the charter is that we can amend, but we have to pass a balanced budget. And that is with the operating side. We are currently looking at whether we have that power on the capital side. And I don't have that answer for you, but I will have the answer. I will try to have the answer in the next budget, but it's very difficult for us to do that without having hearings. There's nothing in the charters that says that we can't have hearings. This is actually a really whole big process question we're having relative to the fact that the capital budget is funded by the dollars that you, the voters, and us, those of us that all live in the city, approve on the ballot. So every election you get these big things that say a certain amount of money goes to libraries and a certain amount of money goes to economic development, all of that. That is money that you, the voters, authorize us to borrow. And that is for brick and mortar, things we can feel, see, and touch. And so that makes up the capital budget in addition to any federal money or state money. We are not anticipating, we've changed the way that we're doing budgeting in that we don't actually put any grants that we're trying to go for because we want to operate in real dollars that we actually have. So what you saw was actual dollars that we actually have. That doesn't include grants. That doesn't include federal money right at the moment, unless there is a for sure that we're getting federal money, which is looked at in a different way. So just to get us, understand how that happens in the budget. I feel very strongly, since we are your representatives, that you elected us, that we should have more oversight of the capital budget, considering that you, the voters, are allowing the city to borrow this money. So that's we can talk philosophy about the capital budget, but that's the process at the moment. But I wanted you to see kind of what the plans are currently, as we think about, the whole discussion around Sisson is really turned into sort of how we manage our solid waste writ large, which I find very fascinating as a person that likes to figure out, running cities. But it's a very important discussion, I think, to have, and more people to understand that. Any questions from the members? Okay, I'll make sure that chart that I showed you gets onto the website, but also gets to all of you, so you can take a look at it, not in a microscope situation where you needed to have your reading glasses and a magnifying glass. But and if I can get a hold of the slides, that way you have those as well. I want to talk briefly, about the site visits. Wanted to get a sense from the members of the task force, since we do not basically have any alternatives right at the moment, whether or not going to the site visits for the sites that currently exist, Reed Bird, Bowleys, and Sisson, is still an exercise you'd like to do. I think it would be a great idea just to kind of see exactly what's happening, but we would need to schedule those, sometime in the next couple of weeks, and hope and pray that it's not going to rain or snow as we do that. But I wanted to get your feedback. If you don't think that's a necessary exercise, then, that's something that I'd like to hear from the members.
I can speak for myself personally, and just like more information. I am interested in the site visits just because it gives you a sense of scale on, like, we talk about kind of like how many bays, how many areas, how big is the compost. So like, it's nice. Like, I have an idea of what Sisson Street is in my mind, but like, how do we know that these other locations are going to really be able to gobble up Sisson Street if need be? Gobble up, for lack of a better term. But if that is something that we are going to be doing or considering, I think it is important for us to at least try and see it and report back to the group about it.
I agree that we should go. And one thing that you mentioned in your comments when you sent it out earlier is that we would not be able to get into Reed Bird. Will we be able to get into Reed Bird at some point or not?
Director?
Yeah, yes. The issue with Rebird is we discovered a leaking pipe that had ruptured, which was preventing, we won't be able to go in the trailer there. That's essentially been destroyed, but we were not going to be using that anyway. But the issue is we've gotten the water turned off. So that was the real issue why we couldn't get on there the last.
So it wasn't because it was people were working or anything.
No,
Oh,
it
great.
was,
Okay.
yeah, we discovered that water main had ruptured and had been flooding the property.
Yeah, since that's the closest alternative, I think it's really important that we look at it.
I think Bowley's would be the closest, but Rebird is definitely one. But I think that's also part of the exercise is how long does it take from where we all live to get to these other sites? Yeah. Yeah.
This is Sam. I'm open to it. But I would personally prefer for this to be closed to the kept exclusively to the task force, primarily so that we can ask questions of DPW. I don't think it's fair to staff that are at these sites, to only answer certain people's questions. So I think it would be best to keep it just to the task force. Also, I think that would help with time.
We would still need to do the separate buses and all of that because we would not, if it's not a open meeting, we would need to not have quorum meeting at the place. We all couldn't go on the same bus. Yep. So there are still some open meetings challenges that we would need to do because it wasn't an official meeting. That's what we would do. So we would still need to do 2 separate buses. So it would be 2 separate discussions and then, or not really discussions, it would just be visits, asking questions, and then we would come back together in a full meeting to debrief. So we would still need to do the separate. The only time that we can do closed meetings where there could be a quorum and it's an official meeting is if there are personnel matters that we would be discussing. It's very narrow as to what can be, but we can have an unofficial meeting, but we would not be able to have quorum meeting working together.
Why not have it be staggered? Some people go to different sites at different times, so each bus, one may be at Rebirth, the other may be at another site at the same time period, and then we split the 3 hours that way, the time that way.
Yep, that's how we had thought about it for Saturday if we were going to do it. So like as one van is at Sisson, another is at Bowley's, and then we sort of do it this way. The whole time ended up being around 3.5 hours because of the possible travel time. But it would still, we would do it that way in terms of 2 separate buses. Yeah. And stagger them. Okay, so it sounds like that's something that we still want to do. I haven't heard from Kevin or Jed or John. How are you all?
Actually, Kevin did sign up. So
okay.
We still have quorum.
We do have quorum still, yeah.
I was just curious as to why you need 2 buses. Is it the volume of people?
It's because we are an official city sanctioned committee task force, we have to abide by open meetings laws. And so what that means is that we cannot be together as a group making, decisions or even having conversations if it's not an open meeting. And so that's why we need to have the 2 buses so that we do not have quorum on either bus.
John, we can't have we can't all be on, and then we can't also have the public on the bus. So therefore we're splitting up because the public cannot be on the bus, insurance and things like that. We have to be split up into 2.
Plus we wouldn't know who from the public and all of that kind of stuff. So we want to be transparent. And what we had planned in the last one was to, if somebody wanted to follow us around, but I do want to get some guidance from the law department around, if it's an unofficial meeting, how to work with the public on that. So what we'll do, so we
And
don't need to go ahead, Samantha, go ahead.
sorry, if the public were to, if members of the public do drive in their own vehicles, I do see the questions in the chat. Are there insurance concerns since one of the locations we're going to is a construction site that's close to the public? I
That
would
is a
hate for
great
someone to drive all, I would hate for someone to drive down there and then not be able to go because it's, to be clear, I'm not restricting the public. I am asking questions because I don't want someone to be expecting to actively participate and then have them get turned away because it's a construction site.
Yeah, these are all good questions.
Yeah,
We will explore
th-
them.
this is Khalil. First of all, I just wanted to emphasize that there is no construction site yet. So even
Oh, okay.
the west side is construction hasn't started. We just moved out of the facility to Neiman, but no construction has begun yet. As the director has mentioned, that we're uh, asking for money in order to have enough money so the design will be completed and then the construction could start. But your question is valid regardless of what it is because of the laws that having a quorum, having or not having a quorum will dictate what we need to do in terms of Open Meeting Act.
Yeah, we did get some initial guidance on the two buses thing, and we'll just need to check in on the public and the insurance piece of it. So we'll make sure to get back to you, and we will work on a potential date on a Saturday, sometime hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to be able to make that happen. And then we'll just ask everybody to pray to whatever you believe in to make sure that the weather holds up. Okay.
Hey, this is Dana. I just want to. I'm looking at the chat, and I just want to make it clear to everybody that the desire is not to exclude the public from the site visits, but rather to allow the site visits to happen in a way that does not violate the Open Meetings Act, but also doesn't put the public at risk. We thought about it. We realized that we didn't want it to be a big event where we had to get multiple buses. It's just not manageable for the task force, which has no budget whatsoever. But it just was not manageable to arrange transportation for the public. So the default was to make sure that there was no quorum at any time during the experience, but that also that the schedule was shared with the public. So if the public wanted to show up at any site, then they could. We try to keep it as clean and simple as possible. The thing that we couldn't control was the weather. And that is the only reason it was canceled, was the weather was just so bad. And I imagine that when we do reschedule it, we'll do the same thing. The desire is to have as open and collaborative and engaging as possible, but we simply cannot. There is no budget to get a bus and make this an event where we can transport the public. Barely able to transport the task force itself. So stay tuned. Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make that clear.
Great. So we will work on trying to get that in, sometime in the next couple of weeks, and get back to you. For the agenda item related to the report, what I just wanted to get a sense from the task force is I'm imagining our outline of our out of our report to be a description of the task force, a brief we are not writing a novel here. We are not writing a book. We are just, a few page report. Take a look at sort of the outline, which would be the introduction about how the task force came together, some of the considerations relative to all of the other sites. So as sort of description to sort of lay out the lay of the land. Once we have our discussion about recommendations, add what the things that we considered, maybe have an index or an attachment that has the list of all of the other sites that we considered and why. And you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts about sort of what the report should actually look like. That is something that I do want to start on at least conceiving, because hopefully we can have a document that you all get a chance to look at the meeting on the 26th, so that it just super draft, so that we can start making some decisions and doing some voting and things like that. Having a work session basically on the 26th. So I just wanted to get a sense of just basic, again, structure right now. Content we will absolutely discuss at our next meeting, in terms of some thoughts there. Any other thoughts about what the report should actually look like? How much like visuals do you want? Do you want you know, those kinds of things for the report? And this would be the report that we make public and that has our recommendations.
I think from my perspective, there's a lot of good data, and especially some of the charts we saw today with the zip code data. I think some of that should definitely be included in terms of how it applies to our decision once we get there. And then I do think that the numbers are important to consider. I think some of my questions that I still had standing in terms of like the RFP, why it was canceled, and that unsolicited proposal thing. Those pieces, once we figure that out, once you've asked those questions with the law office, I think that bit might give us more understanding of like how much is, and I'm just thinking out loud here, how much is that space and area worth if we move it, or how much are we going to get to move it? Like some of those hinder recommendations, I think. So that's why I think I keep pushing for those types of answers so that we could see what can we consider from a cost perspective that even is feasible. And then I think also the visuals of the sites and showcasing how small it is versus other sites is important, as well as what are we doing to some of the other sites in terms of including that ramp. Like the benefits that Sisson Street brings to the residents as being one of the only residential drop-offs that's easy to get to, central to the city, has these ramps that people love. It's like, okay, hypothetically speaking, if we install that ramp everywhere, X amount of time it's going to allow us to be able to improve how we diversify the refuse, if you will. I think those are important, and that's just the three big things I think. And sorry, cut me off if I'm talking too much.
You're fine.
Three big things I think are: where do we want it not to go? What are any key solutions in terms of dealing with it? And then a timeline, like in terms of the time it's going to take to do this, because it's all going to depend, especially when we were listening to DPW talk about the timing of things. If we closed it down in the next year, that's not going to work. Like, so we got to like figure out what is the timeline for this, whatever it is, to happen. And it's not going to happen 2 months from now.
Right.
So that is my diatribe.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think that a coordinated by the public, a coordinated understanding of if Sisson cannot remain, what happens and when will it happen? And it's not going to just get shut down. There has to be a plan, and there has to be a very substantial educational component for people to deal with the issues about the divertible waste and also where these places are and what they will offer that Sisson could not offer.
Okay. These are good. There's some activity in it. Let me get caught up here. So let's see. Oh, you all were talking about when might be some proposed options. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think that I definitely want to add all of the data that we've, collected and that I think that's important for context. I think as much context as we can provide is upfront is really helpful. And then, the things that we considered, and then the recommendations. So I think this is good. To really think through what would be the way to go. I see a hand up. Jed, do you have a question or a suggestion?
Yeah, if we still have quorum, since everyone's sworn in, I'm just feeling like we haven't really taken any action and we've had a lot of meetings, and I would like to maybe just formally vote to get Falls Road off the table so we can say we've done something.
My plan was that we would have a work session in person where we can vote, but if it is the will of the task force, you can make that motion.
I mean, I'd like to do that just to feel like I achieved something tonight, so I would move to remove
I think this has been a good meeting.
the Potts and Callahan site from consideration.
I second it.
Okay, so the motion was to formally vote to remove the proposed Falls Road, 2801 Falls Road site from consideration. And there was the motion was made by Jed, and the second is from Marianne. Members, you can unmute yourselves, and all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. That is a good way to, start the decision-making process.
Yeah, please ask if there were any abstentions.
Oh, sure. Any abstentions? Okay. I was
Yes.
an aye. I don't think I said anything.
Yes,
And
abstention on Robinson.
Robinson is going to be an abstention. I think that makes sense given the potential conflict of interest with DPW. So yep. And Dana, there is one person, two people absent, so we want to make sure that they're recorded as absent. That would be Kevin, I think, came off, and Valerie has not, and Keandra is not here also.
Did Keandra send a substitute?
I didn't see anybody pop up on when I asked about it.
Okay.
But I do want our next meeting to be a work session where we have some proposals to really think through and discuss and vote. And then I would like to have the February 9th meeting, if possible, to be a public comment on our work, if we are able to come up with proposals and make some decisions, at least to have some preliminary things for the public to feedback on, and have a public meeting where they feedback on our recommendations. Then we would come back and fine tune whatever those are, and then make final decisions. Given that we need to figure out when we're doing the site visit, I'm not married to these dates. Would totally love to wrap this up by the end of February if possible, but I understand that we want to be deliberative and intentional. My intent, just to let you know, is to have a draft document with some proposals to think about and at least start to respond to at our next at our meeting in person, and you'll get those ahead of time so that there would be discussion. And that way, at least we have something to start to feedback on. And proposals can be thrown out. The community, the task force can then figure out if we're going to just narrow the proposals or actually vote on one or two, and then have a public meeting to give feedback on our proposals. And then, so that's my thinking about the next steps of the process. I do think a site visit is going to be super helpful for us in those deliberations. So I'm hopeful that we can get the site visit in sooner than later.
I had one quick question to the February 9th date. If there's
Mhm.
any way to possibly shift that to somewhere else in the week or another Monday. Only reason I bring that up is we are doing council board elections that day where board members who are running are presenting to the community. So I want to make sure that I can be at least at that meeting. But other ones are fine. It's just that one day, if possible. I know that's a personal ask, but figured I'd put it out there in case anybody
Yeah, I haven't
is
been
open to it.
to a Hamden Community Council meeting in 4 months, which is totally unusual for me, but this is very important, so we wanted to make that happen. I think what we need to do is first figure out when we're going to do the site visit, and then continue to think through when the next Mondays are going to be. Does anybody have a thought about, in our last couple minutes, if having some discussion on some proposals should happen before the site visits, or we should wait on those till after the site visit? I'm open either way. I mean, if I don't want to wait till the 14th to have the site visit, if we can do it on the 31st, like people are suggesting in the chat, then we can do that. I mean, I'd like to have us all have the full information before we are, thinking about proposals, but we could have a dialogue. There doesn't seem to be a strong preference either way. So if you'll all allow me to work through the scheduling with all of you, then we'll make those proposals and send them out via email in terms of dates for the next parts of the process. Okay. So there was a suggestion in the chat to do 2 different Saturdays. No, we've got to do this all at once because we are utilizing DPW staff time, and I want them to be able to enjoy their Saturdays. So we want to try to do this all in one Saturday if possible. So that's why. And there was a reason why we couldn't do it the next couple Saturdays, Sandy?
Yes, we have a big Jones Falls watershed strategic plan, which is attracting people from all over the watershed. So, and they're all planned, and the lower ones are now. So
Both
February,
Saturdays, next Saturday,
yeah.
the 17th and the 24th? Okay. All right, it's looking like the 31st is going to be our best bet. So we have a couple weeks to be able to plan that out and put some things together. Okay, any other discussion for the good of the order? Samantha, you want to ask your question?
Oh, I just forgot to put my hand down. Apologies.
You said something in the chat. Was that you?
Oh, there were some. That may have been early.
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
Gotcha. No problem. Yep, you are correct. Oh, you were answering somebody's question. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna put the next steps together. I think this was helpful for everybody to see the capital budget and to have those discussions. Let's pencil in the 31st for the site visits. Do your thing in terms of the snow dance, rain dance, whatever you need to do to make sure that we have good weather that day. And we'll put the next proposals for the next few dates together and send it out to the committee. So the 26th and the 9th we're not married to at the moment because of the scheduling of the site visits. Okay. But we'll get back to everybody very, very soon. Okay, thanks everybody for your time. This was helpful. Really appreciate it. Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, so are you saying that maybe we won't meet on the 26th?
I'm thinking that we should probably do the site visits first before we have our work session.
I would greatly appreciate that because I also have a conflict that night. So that would be great. And I do think that to have something to discuss, we need to have gone on the site visit to give us some practical information to follow up on.
I agree. It's not ideal. We're going to push probably our recommendations to March, but we do want to be deliberative and make sure we have all the information to make decisions during our work session. So yes, that is what I'm saying is we're not married to those two. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for your time tonight and for your continued patience and great questions so that we're doing the right thing for our communities. So I appreciate your time and we will send out the next date very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Delegate.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care now.